What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another Riftbound League of Legends TCG video, and welcome to the first proper deck profile here on the channel. You may have seen last week the video I posted where I pit my Jinx build up against a Kai'Sa build that my friend was playing, and I think my Jinx build is really unique and interesting, so I wanted to share it with you guys in today's video. Personally, I think the Jinx Legend is one that has a lot of different build paths. You can be very creative with how you decide to build Jinx. I think it's one that there's going to be a lot more tweaking and testing with before we find out if it's actually more meta or maybe not so much. But I think this build is really strong, so I want to share it with you guys in today's video. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright, so here we are with the Jinx profile, which was super widely requested by you guys after seeing that gameplay video I posted last week. So shouts out to every single one of you who wanted to see this deck. There are quite a few of you, which is awesome to see. So we're going to go ahead and start with our legend. So the Jinx legend is going to give us extra draws, and this deck is built specifically to take advantage of that. And I haven't really seen many other Jinx builds that are built as low to the ground as this. And that kind of segues us perfectly into talking about a card that we're not playing, which I think is going to surprise you guys quite a bit, and that is Super Mega Death Rocket. So you might be seeing a Jinx deck not play Super Mega Death Rocket, and you might be thinking, wow, this guy sucks. What's he doing? It's the signature spell. It's a really good piece of removal, hits things in base, which red sometimes has a problem with, but we're not playing Super Mega Death Rocket because, again, this is a super low to the ground aggro build of Jinx, and this card doesn't really lean into that strategy. I could see sideboarding this card. I do have a mock sideboard to show you guys. It's not perfect by any means, and this card could end up in the sideboard, but I felt like I would just spend a turn removing a card, and even though it would be in a base, and that's really good, I wouldn't really be developing my board as much as I wanted to when I was casting this card. This build is way more comfortable with like trading in battlefields via battle straight up, or with in-battle removal spells. So yeah, not maining Super Mega Death Rocket, which may seem blasphemous for all you Jinx fans out there, but I just don't see it in this particular build at the moment. Again, could be sideboarded. Now for our rune count, we're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 reds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purples. We are leaning slightly more heavily into the reds, although there are some cards that do have a relatively high purple count, so 7-5 has been a really good split. Haven't had any real issues. Let's go ahead and talk about our battlefields now. Of course, we have the Zon Warrens. It's pretty much a card you have to play in Jinx because the deck just benefits off of discard so much. And then we have the Arena's Greatest, which is a super standard aggro battlefield. Of course, you're playing these two. I don't think there's really any room for debate. We are playing one flex spot of a battlefield, though. Currently, I'm trying out Hollowed Tomb. I don't know exactly how I feel about it yet. It's got benefits for sure, because I guess moving on to the next thing, we just play one copy of Jinx Demolitionist. We're not playing any more than the one chosen champion. So there are matchups where I've had success recycling it with Hollowed Tomb. I think another really good one you can consider here is Windswept Hillock, because it just lets you score more points with less units. When you have control of a battlefield, you can then gank over and score that with just one unit, which is really strong. We do have some inherent ganking in the deck, so I don't know if it's super needed, but Windswept Hillock does also combo with one of our win conditions, which can be really good. So I'm going to strongly consider Windswept Hillock a little bit more over Hollowed Tomb once feel like I've gotten my full testing's worth out of this card, but it's definitely been good for recycling this in some matchups. I have liked it for sure. So yep, the 1-up chosen champ. And then we go into our main deck. We will start off with the gears. We are playing 3 copies of Scraphead. This card is absolutely nuts in Jinx. I mean, let me tell you, like, the value you get off this is insane. And you might be thinking to yourself, how does that make sense when you want to get to a low hand size to really use Jinx's ability to draw extra cards? Well, I'll tell you that cards now are better than cards later, and you'll eventually get to the point where you are drawing extra cards with your legend. But if that's not in the earlier parts of the game, I will say you're probably in a winning position because you're getting those cards earlier from Scraphead. Basically, it's really good. I would not cut this card. It just cycles through the deck. It makes this almost like a 37 card deck, which, if you know about card games, consistency is usually a very good thing. We are playing 3 Seals of Rage. This is a more red heavy deck, and this being a 0-cost card is also really important for the next card we'll talk about. But yeah, we want to be able to save on those power costs because there are quite a few power costs in this deck. I could maybe even see playing like 1 or 2 purple seals, but at a certain point you just draw too many of them and you're not actually like progressing your board state and aggroing your opponent. So I think 3 reds is fine for now. The purple costs, we just deal with it as we need to. thinking about it now, maybe even a 2-2 split of 2 reds and 2 purples could be good. I'll maybe try that out a little bit more in the future, because there are some purple costs in the deck that I would like to mitigate if possible. But really, we are playing for Sun Disc. Sun Disc, if you guys have been around the channel for a little bit, is a card that I think is just so good. I think this card's incredible, and you saw it in the gameplay video. You saw it working on all cylinders. I'm honestly considering bumping this up to 3 copies, because in the games that I don't see it, the deck just feels completely different. And I will say I do find it most games, because again, this deck is able to turbo through itself so quickly, but it's such a vital piece that even though it's technically a little bit bricky, there's plenty of ways to discard extra copies. So I may very well move this up to a 3rd copy, because it's just so vital and allows you to win games you otherwise would not be able to win. And then we have 3 copies of Stacked Deck. You have to play this in any competitive purple deck that you're playing, because it's just that important. I mean, being able to sculpt your hand, having a 1-cost way to activate Legion, which you do need for Sun Disc. Sun Disc is a Legion based card, so you need all the low cost ways to activate it, like Stacked Deck, like the 0-cost seals, and any other low cost cards you can try to proc it with. It's extremely important, and the consistency is just unbeatable. And now this is a new addition that you didn't see in the gameplay video last week. This is Hextech Ray. So this has come in place of Get Excited. The reason I was playing Get Excited is because we do have some high cost cards in the deck, but generally those high cost cards, if you can help it, you don't really want to discard them, because they are pretty much your win conditions. And Get Excited is extremely underwhelming when you're discarding low cost cards, because you're not blowing up big things. So I wanted to try Hextech Ray, because I figured that it just answers low cost. So like you get the point advantage against like the Master Yi's of the world, even like the early game of Kaisa, stuff like that. And in this deck, I'm very comfortable with trading my units into their big units. So if you swing in a Chemtech Enforcer, for example, and use a Hextech Ray, you can kill anything up to 7 power or 7 might. So this definitely has been working out very nicely. I do like this quite a bit over the Get Excited, even though Get Excited is a bit more of like a standard Jinx card. And we have 2 Cleave. I used to hate on this card. Now I definitely see the applications. Helps you dodge some removal, helps you beat over really problematic units. So I definitely think 2 is pretty important here. You saw me cast 1 in the gameplay video on defense. Obviously, this card does not work on defense. It doesn't give any additional power, but you can still cast it because it is an action. And I needed to cast it in order to get my hand down to 1 so I can draw additional cards and get this like dead card out of my hand. So it has that flexibility. And also, it's a 1-cost way to activate Legion, which is really, really good. And then we have 2 copies of Rebuke. This just answers any problematic unit. Like, this can really cheese you wins where you probably shouldn't win. The problem with Jinx is when your opponent gets to their higher rune counts and they play really big units that you normally can't remove. So having a way to remove them, and then they have to reinvest an entire turn with pretty much all their runes, is really, really huge. So this thing steals games that, again, otherwise you wouldn't be able to do. And that's kind of the name of the game with Jinx. You're stealing games. You're kind of like inching them out or clinching them. You're not like in super dominant winning positions, but you score fast enough and exert enough pressure with the right cards that you can steal those games. And as part of our win condition for the deck, we are playing 2 copies of Ride the Wind. There can certainly be arguments to play a 3rd copy, but this is not really a card that I want to draw early. It's a card that I want to draw at the right time when I have the proper setup for it. And part of that setup is our 3 copies of Vi Destructive. This card is incredible with Ride the Wind. Basically, the combo is you're going to use Vi and increase her might to something ridiculous, because this is a trash turbo deck. Like, you're sending cards to your trash at an insane rate with all the discard you have, all the draw, all the cheap cards. So Vi will easily get up to like 10, 11 might. You activate Ride the Wind. You know, she starts in play tapped. You move her up to a battlefield in ready because of Ride the Wind being so insane. And then she has her own ganking to gank across the other battlefield. So it's excellent removal if you can get Vi high enough, which is super easy in this deck. If you get this thing up to 15 might or whatever, like some ridiculous numbers, you clear out multiple units in all battlefields with just these 2 cards. And obviously, if you're on 6 points, this is almost an uninteractable way to win the game, unless they specifically have Defy or some sort of removal that doesn't care about might, which isn't really meta right now. Like, yellow has some stuff, like 1 card that can kill this thing regardless of its might, but that card's not really popular at all. And yeah, this only gets stopped in the green matchup, and you're pressuring them so much that, you know, they might not even have the defies to stop this when you need it. So really good, and really insane win condition for sure. And that's why I was considering Windswept Hillock, because when you use Ride the Wind on a unit and first send it to Hillock, that unit essentially becomes a Vi because it gains ganking from Hillock and then can gank over. So if Hollow Tomb doesn't really work out, I think I'll definitely swap that out for Windswept Hillock. And then for some more standard Jinx units, we do have 3 copies of Chemtech Enforcer. This thing is definitely overstated in terms of attacking because it's a 2 that swings for 4. But obviously Jinx is the only legend that can actually deal with the discard. So yeah, really good. And obviously combos extremely well with Flame Chompers. There's more than just one way to discard this card. Like Enforcer is not your only way, but obviously this is still a really, really strong card in a Jinx deck. But again, one of the reasons why the deck is so power hungry. And then we have 2 copies of Traveling Merchant, more Trash Turbo, more low-cost units, more turn 1 plays, more cycling through the deck. This card is incredible. I love it for the 2-drop slot for any purple deck, really. And 2 copies of Noxus Hopeful. You guys may have seen my short recently about why this is like a perfect 2 of in red decks, because you don't want to see it early. You don't want to see it on turn 1. However, you did see this card fix my game going second on turn 1 because I was able to use Stacked Deck. And that gave me the Legion to make this thing a 2-drop. And if I didn't have Stacked Deck, I would have had no turn 1 play. And that is definitely going to spell disaster for a deck like Jinx to not have a turn 1 play. So incredible card, and 2 of I think is the perfect number pretty much. And now for our couple of high cost cards. You heard me talk about Super Mega Death Rocket and why it's like 2 high cost, but these cards are high cost, but they're, you know, your win conditions and they're units, so they give you board presence. We're playing 3 copies of Draven. You score so fast in this deck, and having the super high might makes it impossible for some decks to deal with this. Again, they have to have removal that doesn't care about might, which is not super common right now. Like Kaisa, once this thing gets up to 7-8 might, they have a really hard time dealing with it, so it's extremely strong for that reason. And then we have 2 copies of Rasa the Sunderer. I was on 3 of this for a while, but there is some conflict there between this card and Vi, because this card wants you to have a big trash, Vi wants you to recycle your trash. There are tons of situations where you can just play this for 0 first and then play Vi and then recycle your trash. So, like, it can combo really well in that regard. Play this first, use Vi's effect after. But ever since I cut Get Excited, I felt more justified in putting this down to 2 copies. Because, again, it's not something you want to see early, because you're not going to have a super big trash by turn 2, turn 3. But Draven technically is a turn 2 play going second, and he's more spammable than Rasa, and his might is more problematic than Rasa's. But Rasa, whenever you can play this thing for 0 energy, it's just absolutely insane. So you saw exactly how this is supposed to work in the gameplay video. I do really like these ratios. Draven is the best card in red when it comes to a top end. That's definitely for sure. Now that's the entire main board. So you guys now have seen the entire main deck of the Jinx deck that you were all asking about. Now I'm going to show you guys a mock sideboard. Again, this is not perfect, but it is something to work off of and maybe take some ideas from if you're looking for a sideboard. So we do have 2 copies of Acceptable Losses. I do like Fading Memories more as a card in general, but this thing being 1 cost is perfect for Jinx because it activates our Legion for 1 cost. Obviously, we want to avoid blowing up our own solid gears, but when you are playing this card, you're going to be more inclined to actually cast Scraphead instead of just discarding it, because Scraphead says when you play it, when it's discarded, or when it's killed, you draw 1. So actually, in that case, your Scraphead becomes a draw 2, which is really, really strong. So that synergy in particular makes this card really good. And then we have 2 copies of Noxus Saboteur. If you saw the recent important combos video that I posted a few days ago, you'll see why this plus Sundisk is so good. Basically, this thing not having an on-play effect means that your opponent can't react when you actually play it. And if you are able to resolve a Sundisk before playing it, it comes in active mode, and your opponent doesn't have a chance to use their hidden, so you send it into a battlefield, and now they lose out on their hidden blade, their Zonias, whatever it was. So when you're playing Sundisk, you should probably side this card. It's just that good. And then we have 3 copies of Gust, basically bouncing low-cost things. You could argue that this should be in the main board over Hextech Ray. This specifically answers low-cost units, where Hextech Ray has the potential to trade up into bigger units. So I think you can definitely main board one and side the other. If you wanted to like reduce the power cost of the main board, you can definitely main this and then side Hextech Ray. I do think they probably should both be in the deck. There should also probably be room for Falling Star, and then again potentially like the Super Mega Death Rocket. So again, not a perfect sideboard, but something for you to work off of. and the one additional copy of Rebuke for those decks that play really problematic units. Maybe like Aurora decks, but you honestly probably just want to side in the gear removal instead. So yeah, maybe the third Rebuke isn't totally necessary. Maybe that's where like a Death Rocket or two can come in, but that's what I've got for you guys. So if you guys enjoyed the deck profile, let me know. We're going to just recap really quickly. All right, guys, there you have it. That's the Jinx build for you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think about it, anything you would suggest changing. Let me know if you plan on trying it out. I really do want to know. If you guys like the video, make sure to drop a thumbs up on it and subscribe for more Riftbound content, and I'll see you guys in the next one.